February 1944, in a German military station on the edge of Prague, a young radio operator leaned closer to his headphones. He had been listening to coded enemy signals for hours, his eyes heavy from the long night. Most of what he heard was meaningless static or broken words. But then, hidden in the middle of one faint message, came a sound that froze him in place. It was not a call sign, not a number, not even a military phrase. It was a name, Miri. The operator hesitated. He knew this name. Weeks earlier, the Gestapo had raided a Jewish home in Prague. The family's eldest daughter was called Miriam, but the files also listed her nickname, Miri. The Rosenbergs, a tailor's family who had been taken away. Their house stood empty now. Their belongings had been searched, cataloged, and sealed. So, how could her name appear on the air again, whispered like a ghost through the static? The Rosenbergs had lived in a modest home on the edge of the old city. Their street was narrow, paved with uneven stones, with washing lines strung between crumbling houses. Shops sold bread and candles, though most windows were dark by 1944. The occupation had drained the life from Prague. Soldiers patrolled. Families disappeared. Doors were marked with chalk. Inside the Rosenberg house lived David, a tailor with a small workshop, his wife Ruth, their 3 children, and David's mother, Anna. They were quiet people, but there was one object that drew notice. On a wooden shelf in the living room stood a statue of the Virgin Mary. Carved from dark oak, her eyes lowered, her hands open. She was simple, but powerful. Generations of Rosenbergs had prayed before her. Every morning, Anna would light a candle at the statue's base and whisper words half in Yiddish, half in Czech. Neighbors later said the candle was always burning, even when food was short and oil was scarce. "The lady must not go dark," Anna once told her neighbor Marta. In 1942, when Prague's Jewish council was forced to list household possessions for confiscation, the relic was recorded as Wooden Madonna with Child. That entry still survives, but when the Gestapo searched the house 2 years later, the statue did not appear in their files. A photograph taken by German officers after the raid shows the Rosenberg living room. The table, the cracked stove, the shelf, but the statue is gone. Where did it go? The answer only came years later. In 1946, long after the war ended, demolition crews cleared what was left of the Rosenberg home. Beneath warped floorboards, they found a folded piece of paper, blurred by damp. It was written in Anna's hand. "The lady is safe in the wall," the letter said. No one knew which wall she meant, but this short line was enough to keep the mystery alive. In her diary, recovered from the ruins of a neighbor's house, Marta Weiss wrote of Anna's strange devotion to the relic. She remembered Anna saying, "She survived fire once. She will survive again." What fire Anna spoke of, Marta did not know. But others recalled hearing questions from German officers about a Black Madonna. This raised even more fear. Why would the Gestapo care so much about one small family statue? Prague was full of Catholic icons. Yet files later revealed the officers returned to the Rosenberg house 3 separate times, searching. They did not find what they were looking for. The house itself became a kind of character in whispered stories. Children said they saw light through its cracks even after the windows were boarded. Neighbors claimed they heard soft voices inside when it should have been empty. And then came the radio signal. The operator, who heard the name Miri, was not a man of faith, but he knew enough to report what he heard. His report was added to a growing file already marked with the family's name. Inside the file were photos, property lists, interrogation notes, and curiously, one sealed envelope. The envelope, later found in a Berlin archive, held a copied sketch. It showed a wall marked with a faint outline of a hidden chamber. At its center was drawn a small figure of the Virgin Mary. The drawing was unsigned. Was this proof the relic was hidden inside the house? Or was it bait? A false clue placed by someone who wanted the Nazis to keep searching? The truth remained unclear. But what was clear is that the Rosenbergs had risked everything to protect the statue. Protecting it was not only about faith, it was about defiance. By 1944, the family was gone. Records show that David, Ruth, and 2 of the children were sent to Theresienstadt, then on to Auschwitz. Only fragments of their names survive in the transport lists. Miriam's name was crossed out with the word verschollen beside it, missing. Yet somehow, her voice, or her name, surfaced in a radio transmission, weeks after the house had been emptied. Who sent it? Some believed it was Miriam herself, alive somewhere in hiding, sending a sign to those who cared to listen. Others believed it was a code used by resistance fighters, naming the child to signal that the relic was still safe. And a few whispered that it was the house itself, holding its secret so tightly that even in silence, it spoke. The first chapter of this story leaves us with a haunting image: an empty home, a missing family, and a statue no one could find. The lady in the wall, a relic that survived where people could not. But as the months went on, the search for the Virgin Mary relic drew in more witnesses, more documents, and darker consequences for those who stood too close. By the spring of 1944, the Rosenberg house had become more than an empty shell. It was now a point of suspicion for the Gestapo. Files from the Prague headquarters show 3 separate entries under the same address. Each time, German officers returned to search. They took tools. They broke floorboards. They opened walls. But nothing was found. Still, rumors spread. In 1947, 2 years after the war ended, a statement was taken from a neighbor named Joseph Kroll. He had lived across the narrow street and had watched the house daily. Kroll remembered the Rosenbergs as quiet people. But he said something unusual happened after their arrest. 3 times the black cars came, he testified. Each time, soldiers went inside with lanterns. They stayed through the night, but in the morning, they left with nothing. It was like they were searching for something they could never touch. Kroll claimed he once heard one of the officers curse under his breath, "The lady is not here." In the 1960s, a thin folder marked Marianne Figure was declassified from the Berlin archives. It had been hidden under stacks of unrelated war reports. Inside were 3 typed pages. They described a wooden Marian figure associated with unlawful gatherings. The notes warned that the object was used as cover for forbidden transmissions. The wording was vague. But the meaning was clear. The statue was not only a relic of faith, it had become a symbol for resistance. Faith or code? Historians still argue what this means. Some believe the statue was used to mark a secret radio point for underground Czech groups. Others think it was a symbol, carried in memory, to keep hope alive during the occupation. But the Gestapo believed enough in its power to keep returning to the Rosenberg house. And soon, their suspicion turned toward the family itself. The Rosenbergs' eldest daughter, Miriam, was 16 in 1944. Her school records show her as bright, with a gift for languages. Neighbors remembered her helping younger children read by candlelight. In April of that year, according to prison records, Miriam was taken in for questioning. She never returned home. One surviving registry lists her name. Next to it, a single word, Verschollen, missing. The line is drawn in thick pencil, as if someone pressed hard into the paper. For decades, her fate was unknown. No death certificate, no witness. Only the silence of the archive. David, Ruth, and the two younger children had already been deported months earlier. Transport lists from Theresienstadt and Auschwitz record their names. None survived. That left Miriam as the last of the Rosenbergs in Prague. Her disappearance became a shadow over the house. Anna, the grandmother, had vanished even earlier. Some said she was taken with the first wave of deportations. Others whispered she had been hidden by Catholic friends. But one diary entry suggests she may have stayed behind longer than anyone thought. In 1958, when construction workers rebuilt the neighborhood, a fragment of burned paper was found between bricks. The writing was faint but still legible. It read, "The lady is still in the wall. Miriam knows where." The paper was signed only with an A. Many believe this was Anna's last message. If so, it changes the timeline. It suggests that Anna may have survived into 1944, still guarding the relic, still trusting her granddaughter to carry the secret. Why did the Rosenbergs risk everything for a statue? For some, the answer was faith. A belief that the Virgin Mary watched over them even in the darkest times. For others, the answer was resistance. The relic may have been used as a sign between groups, a marker that the house was safe, or that a message was ready to be passed on. Either way, the cost was high. Miriam's disappearance was not random. It came at the moment when Gestapo officers had grown most desperate to locate the relic. If she knew the hiding place, her silence may have been the price of her life. Several testimonies collected after the war add to the puzzle. One came from a seamstress who worked near the Rosenbergs' street. She remembered seeing Miriam escorted by officers toward a car. She said the girl's lips moved as if she were praying. Another came from a Czech police officer forced to work under the Gestapo. He later said the Germans were convinced the statue was linked to coded broadcasts. They believed a message was hidden inside the figure, he recalled. A third came from a Red Cross worker who entered the neighborhood in 1945. She said local children still spoke of the lady in the wall, as if the relic had become a ghost story of survival. The mystery of the relic is compelling, but at its heart lies tragedy. A family destroyed, a girl taken, a community left to wonder why. The relic had become more than wood and candle wax. It had become hope, and that made it dangerous. By late 1944, the war was turning. The Allies were advancing. The Germans were retreating. But in Prague, the Gestapo still watched the Rosenberg house. The lady in the wall remained hidden, but those who guarded her paid the price. In May 1945, Prague shook with the sound of liberation. The Red Army entered the city after days of fierce fighting. German banners were torn down. Prison doors were forced open. Survivors stumbled into the light. Among the soldiers was Lieutenant Sergei Antonov, a young officer from Moscow. He carried a small notebook in which he wrote daily observations of the campaign. Decades later, his granddaughter donated this notebook to a Czech archive. Inside is a passage that mentions the Rosenberg house. Antonov wrote, "On the second day, we searched abandoned houses. In one, the air smelled of dust and smoke. A local boy pointed to a crack in the wall. We broke it open. Inside, we found a bundle, carefully wrapped. The bundle held a small statue of the Virgin Mary, blackened by time. It looked as if someone had hidden it with love." But Antonov noted something else. With the statue was another item, a scorched page torn from a German file. The page mentioned the Rosenberg relic by name. It also linked it to two other objects, Die Schwarze Madonna and unlawful transmissions. No one knows why this page was hidden with the relic. Was it planted by the Gestapo, or had Anna herself hidden it, hoping someone would understand? The most chilling part of Antonov's diary comes at the end of that entry. "When we carried the statue outside, I thought I heard voices in the street grow quiet, as if they were waiting. An old woman crossed herself. Others whispered that the lady had saved them. I do not know. I am a soldier. But I felt something that day I cannot explain." This testimony, though simple, is one of the last direct mentions of the relic. In the months after liberation, Prague struggled to rebuild. Families searched for missing loved ones. Survivors tried to reclaim what little they had left. The Rosenberg house was sealed, then left to decay. Official records note that the Virgin Mary relic was transferred to a church office in 1946. After that, its trail ends. Some believe it was stolen and sold on the black market. Others think it still rests in a church vault, locked away under a false name. What is certain is that the relic never returned to the Rosenbergs. Their line had ended. But what of Miriam, the daughter whose name appeared in the radio signal? No grave has ever been found. No witness has ever confirmed her death. In one Red Cross list from 1946, her name appears briefly among displaced persons, but then is crossed out again. Some say she survived in hiding and carried the story of the relic abroad. Others believe she died under interrogation, refusing to reveal the hiding place. Either way, her silence has become part of the mystery. Historians now see the Rosenberg relic not just as a family treasure, but as a symbol of defiance. It was faith, yes, a candle burning in darkness, but it may also have been code. The Gestapo believed the statue marked a secret meeting point for resistance radio. Testimonies suggest it was used as a sign of safety, a signal that a house could be trusted. If that is true, then the Rosenbergs risked everything to guard not only their faith, but their neighbors, their community, and their country's fight for freedom. Even after the house was demolished in the 1970s, locals said strange things lingered on that street. Workers claimed tools went missing overnight, only to reappear inside sealed walls. Children spoke of a woman's voice singing prayers in the dark. A priest said he saw candlelight flickering behind boarded windows, though no one was inside. These may be stories, or simply memory playing tricks, but they show how the lady in the wall lived on in imagination, long after the relic itself was gone. The Rosenbergs are gone. Their house is gone, but their story remains. A family destroyed in the Holocaust, a daughter who vanished, a grandmother who believed a statue could carry hope through war, and a relic, hidden in silence, that drew the attention of soldiers, officers, and neighbors alike. We may never know the full truth of the Virgin Mary relic, whether it was simply wood and candle wax or something more. But perhaps that is not the point. Perhaps the point is that even when surrounded by fear, people will risk everything to protect a symbol of light. Some names were meant to be found. Some relics were meant to be remembered. If you want to hear more fictional stories like this, stories hidden in walls, in files, and in the silence of history, subscribe now. Tap the bell, because the next story may be waiting in a year you thought you already knew.